Well, good morning and welcome to Over the Vast Nurseries. I'm David Wilson and I'm here in the middle of our nursery on a beautiful fall day. The autumn temperatures are beginning to kick in now, and of course the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer. And if you hear hammering going on in the background, it's because we're preparing our plants for the winter time. We're covering them up to protect them so that then in springtime, when we begin to send out all of these beautiful plants to our partnering garden centres, and there's hundreds of them located all over our region, that's the Mid-Atlantic and Northeastern states. When you go along there, hopefully you'll be able to select the ones that appeal to you most, the ones that are right for your conditions, and most importantly of all, the ones that will bring you enjoyment and happiness and hopefully contentment growing them in your garden. And that for me is what gardening's all about. It's the fun and the pleasure and enjoyment and reward that we get from growing plants, watching them develop through the seasons, and then being able to go out on a day like today and admire them in our gardens. And if you've been watching any of our videos here on this channel before, you'll know that I take special pleasure in introducing you to plants that I think you'll really enjoy growing in your garden. And with that in mind, today is a rather special day because I have a very special plant that I want to tell you about. And that is this wonderful variety of Panicle Hydrangea. This is Hydrangea WorryFree variety Ruby Snow. And as you see on the tag here, it's an absolutely gorgeous plant. It's one that we've been evaluating now for 4 going on 5 years. And right from the time that we've had it as a young plant, it has been really impressive. Now, let me tell you that because this is a Panicle Hydrangea like the rest of them here in this display garden, it's very hardy. So you never have to worry about winter cold throughout our entire region. This will grow very well in all sorts of conditions as long as the soil is reasonably well drained and it's in a sunny or partially shaded site. It's a variety that also isn't really bothered by any pests and diseases. But the reason that it's in the worry-free range is that this has got special attributes that elevates it to one of the most impressive Panicle hydrangeas that we've ever grown in the nursery. And I can tell you that personally, this is probably the best variety that I have ever come across, period. Now let me tell you why all of that big statement means so much to me. First of all, this is a plant that starts flowering in the summertime. It comes out with these stems that are really stocky and sturdy and don't flop over like many of the old-fashioned varieties that have weak stems, and so with the big heavy heads tend to hang over and sometimes touch the ground. Not this variety. It's nice and sturdy, as you see, and carries its flowers all over the entire plant, from the ground up along the sides onto the tops. You see that it's really very free flowering and carrying these lovely big heads that emerge first with a very nice gleaming white color, the sort of color that's wonderful for the heat of summer. It brightens up our garden, and because it's icy white, cools down the temperature. And then as the flowers begin to mature and you watch them closely, you'll see that these sterile florets, which is what makes up the flower here on this pyramidal shaped head, will begin to take on a soft pink color. And that pink color will then intensify in the coming weeks and then gradually get a deeper, very bright, becoming pink, and yet the tip of the flower will stay white. So it gives you a lovely kind of bicolor effect. And then as we start to get into cooler temperatures and longer nights and shorter days, you will see that that pink color will extend right up through the top of the plant, and then as now we get into autumn time, you'll see that it takes on this glorious ruby red color, which of course is why the name is called Ruby Snow. And what's more, this color will stay, instead of many of the older old-fashioned varieties that come out white and then quickly change to a brownish or beige shade, this will keep its color going right through to the frosts of early winter. Depending upon where you live, you will be able to have color all the way through from summertime right through late summer into the fall until we get frosty wintry weather. So that's why this is such a special variety, and one that we hope you get a chance to find a spot for somewhere in your garden. And speaking about that gives me an opportunity to tell you about the size of it, because as you see, this is a plant that only grows to about 4 foot high, so it will fit in a wide variety of situations. It gets to about 4 foot high, by a little wider than that, probably about 5 foot wide. But all the time, as you see, one single plant will give you a tremendously long seasonal display. And then imagine what you could do with this if you had, say, a curving driveway, or you had a bank or a larger border where you're able to do this in a mass display. And if you don't have a garden, don't worry, because you can grow this in a container too. It's a very good plant for giving you that long seasonal interest in a container. And of course, they make wonderful cut flowers, because with stems as sturdy and strong as this, you can make impressive big arrangements if you want. Would be wonderful for using in churches or in large rooms, in ballrooms. If you've got a wedding function, something like that, you can use this as a very impressive and long-lasting cut flower. And of course, you can also dry them as well. And if you want to find out more about how to grow Panicle hydrangeas, how to prune them, how to look after them, and little things that you can do to enjoy and get the best of this in your garden, scroll through this channel, because there's lots of interesting videos and information that we have on there that hopefully will be able to give you all the information you need to be able to enjoy this fabulous variety. Now, if you remember, I said that we've been testing and evaluating this plant for now almost 5 years. And during that time, I remember when it was just a little plant in a pot, it was impressive even at that stage. And I remember looking at it amongst all the other selections that we had under trial at that time, and making a note in September when I started to see the color on it first. And I remember writing down in my notes the words "beautiful." And that has only got more and more impressive as time has gone on. So we grew it first in a pot, in a container, to make sure that it was going to be a good plant in production. But then we wondered, how would it do if we took it and planted it out in a garden situation, just to make sure that it's going to be something that's going to perform well in your garden. So we took it and planted it here in this spot, and guess what? It flowered beautifully, did well. And then every year that we've been watching it ever since, it's just become more and more impressive. And that's why I'm able to tell you with so much confidence that this is a plant that I think you should probably get and grow in your garden. Now, what's important to mention is that this is a selection that's been developed by one of Europe's foremost plant breeders. Kees Jan Kraan has been breeding plants in the Netherlands since the 1980s, and over the years he's made some very important contributions to our gardens, bringing forward plants like Mahonias, Weigela, roses, and perennials like daylilies, and a very nice selection of catmint too. Lots of good plants, and some of which you'll have probably heard me talking about here on this channel. But it wasn't until 1999, 2000 or thereabouts, that he really started taking the breeding of Panicle Hydrangea seriously. He started making lots of different crosses and lined out his seedlings for 3 years, evaluating the best ones from that. And at one point, in fact, he had as many as 5,000 different seedlings, so many that he outgrew his testing and evaluating site in Boskoop, which is the nursery production area of Holland. Very, very important. They send plants out all over Europe from that location. He was telling me that he couldn't bear to destroy his seedlings, so he got a big field in the bulb growing district in Holland, and that's where he lined out all the seedlings. And then, together with his friend Ronald Houtman from Boot and Dart and Peter Colster from the Colster Company, they started to evaluate the best of those, and in 2011 picked out this selection as showing a lot of potential. They watched it carefully until 2015, and that's when they realized that they had something that really deserved to be introduced. And then our friends Linda and Angela at Plants Nouveau told us about it, and that's when we started to evaluate it here on the nursery. And from then until the present time, it's only just got better and better. And that's why it's a worthy member of the worry-free collection of plants, the solutions for success. That means that it's hardy, it's easy to grow, it's very reliable, puts on an impressive show, and as you will probably remember, doesn't flop like many of the old-fashioned varieties that hang their heads. So that's why I suggest that you try to get out, take a look at it in some of our partnering garden centres and see if you can find a spot for it somewhere in your garden. It really is a very special plant that I'm delighted to tell you about. And I hope also that it's one that's going to bring you plenty of H&C, happiness and contentment. This is David Wilson. Enjoy your gardening. It's good for us, and it's very good for our environment too.